Okay? And even the light coming out of this light bulb is, in fact, electromagnetic radiation, ripples in that electromagnetic field. But there's a big difference between these fields and the Higgs fields. If I turn off the lights, if I turn off the radio transmitters, if I stop the dynamo action in the Earth's center, then, in fact, the electromagnetic fields will die away, and we'll have no electromagnetic field here. The Higgs field is different. The Higgs field is there even without sources. You can't turn it off. If you could turn it off, everything would start moving at the speed of light. Okay? So you can't turn it off. So we say it's there even with no source. It's a vacuum field. It's not a free parameter of the theory. We know that trillions of tons per cc is not an adjustable parameter at this point because we've measured, it's measured. What can we say?
Chapter 8, Electricity Defined. Electricity is the strain or tension set up by the two opposing desires of universal mind thinking, the desire for balanced action and the desire for rest. This electric universe is a complexity of strains caused by the interaction of these two opposing, interchanging electric desires. All matter is electric. All matter is conditioned into greater or lesser strains according to the intensity of desire, which is the cause of all electric strain to which it electric desires. All matter is electric. All matter is conditioned into greater or lesser strains according to the intensity of desire, which is the cause of all electric strain to which it is subjected. The farther removed from rest, the greater the strain or tension. That which we call high electric potential is merely great strain to maintain a condition which is far from the condition of rest. The familiar return ball with which a child plays is a good example of electric strain. When the ball is thrown from the hand, the elastic gradually tightens to increase the tension of resistance to strain generated in the elastic. The strain continues to intensify until the ball comes to rest. When the ball returns, the strain gradually lessens until the ball again comes to rest in the child's hand. When that happens, the strain and tension have been voided. Tension has not become rest. It has ceased to be. This whole electric universe is a complete maze of similar tensions. Every particle of matter in the universe is separated from its condition of oneness, just as the return ball is separated from the hand and each is connected with the other, one by an electric thread of light which measures the tension of that separateness. It is as though all of the universe of separated particles were playing return ball with each other. When a condition of oneness has been attained in matter, the electric tension ceases to be. Sodium chloride will illustrate this meaning. When sodium and chlorine desire separateness from their oneness off condition in sodium chloride, an electric strain is set up between that separated trinity. When the desire for separateness has gone out of sodium and chlorine, the electric tensions which bound them to the rest condition from which they sprang are voided. Likewise, sodium and chlorine are utterly voided. The reason for this is because all matter is a series of electric tensions. When the tensions cease, the conditions set up by them cease. It is as though two children on a seesaw withdrew into their fulcrum. Sex tensions and strains intensify the farther they are removed from rest. When unbalanced, sex tensions void their unbalance through interchange between the opposite electric desires which cause those tensions. Electrical force ceases to be. Likewise, sex desire ceases to be. Electrical tensions exist only between unbalanced electrical matter in motion which is separated from other electrical matter in motion. Wherever there is a condition of rest, electricity ceases to be. Electricity is, therefore, a dual force which seemingly unbalances a condition of rest by dividing it into two opposite conditions and sets them in seeming motion. Interchange between the two opposites of motion voids the unbalanced condition at the end of each cycle of electrical expression. As rest cannot be unbalanced, save by illusion, electricity which causes that illusion has no existence. Behold in me the one, inseparable. Two things there are not in my universe. There is but me. Everything that is is of every other thing that is. Nothing is of itself alone. All things are indissolubly united. This is a universe of seeming, an imagined universe of thinking, an action universe of desiring. That which mind desireth will appear in the image of that desire. Seek ye therefore what ye will in me, and ye shall find it. Desire what ye will, and behold, it standeth before thee. Throughout the eons it hath been thine without thy knowing, e'en though thou hast but just asked for it. Sit ye not and ask, acting not, for thy desire will not come thy way to thee, unaided by thy strong arms. Behold, I am within all things centering them, and I am without all things controlling them. But I am not those things which I center in them and control in space surrounding them. I am the center of my universe of me. Everywhere I am is the center of all things, and I am everywhere. From the Divine Iliad. Light is all there is in the spiritual universe of knowing, and simulation of that light in opposite extensions is all there is in the electric wave universe of sensing. The simulation of light in matter is not light. There is no light in matter. Perhaps the confusion which attends this idea would be lessened if we classify everything concerning the spiritual universe, such as life, intelligence, truth, power, knowledge, and balance, as being the one light of knowing, and everything concerning matter and motion as being the two simulated lights of thinking.
Theory of general relativity and a lot of math to show this, but it's an absolutely inescapable conclusion of general relativity that if you have vacuum energy, the universe will undergo a runaway, accelerating, exponential expansion. Okay? Now, the Standard Model says, in fact, that the Higgs field, it fills up the universe. And it even tells how much it is. The Higgs field in 1 cubic centimeter is more than 1 trillion tons. That's how much it is. 1 trillion tons per cc. Okay? Can you feel that? Well, as I said, you actually do feel it because your hand is able to move slowly. It's what gives you the mass.
Hi, it's Mr. Anderson, and this is AP Physics Essentials video 115. It's on standing waves. Standing waves are like they sound. They're waves that appear to stand still. And so an example of a sound standing wave is the waves found inside a vuvuzela. And so you blow on it, you get that sound. You blow it with a higher frequency, and then you could even try to pierce your lips a little bit more and get an even higher frequency. But what's happening is you have these specific standing waves that sit within the chamber of the vuvuzela. Now, a wine glass works the same way. If you rub your finger with a little bit of water around the surface of it, what you can do is generate these standing waves inside the wine glass. What you're doing is vibrating the sides, and as you do that, you're vibrating the air, and since you have a standing wave inside there, it makes this pitch. Add water to it, and you're going to have a slightly different pitch. And so waves can either be traveling or standing waves. Traveling waves will move from one place to another, and standing waves will appear to stand still. Now, when you look at it, it's kind of an illusion. They're standing still, but the traveling waves are bouncing back and forth. In other words, they're being reflected off the boundaries, and then there's interference to create these standing waves. And so if we look at this animation, the dark wave is going to be the standing wave, but in the background you can see the blue and the red waves that are bouncing back and forth, and it's the summation of them that creates the standing wave. Now, if you notice, that standing wave is going to have areas where it's not moving at all, and that's due to destructive interference, where the waves are canceling each other out, and we call those in physics nodes, areas where it's not moving. And then we're going to have total constructive interference in certain areas, and we call those antinodes. That's where it's moving the maximum amount back and forth and back and forth.
the spiritual aspects and why science uses matter to try to define matter, which again, a particle, you can't even, what a particle of what? What is it a part of? How can a particle be used to describe another particle?
Right.
Again, it's like saying the left side of the seesaw is responsible for the right side's motion, but yet any numbskull can look at the center of the seesaw and see that fulcrum there that doesn't move. You know, and that's one thing science can't see, so yet they deny it exists.
Welcome to the Chemistry Question. Jordan here. I talked in a recent video about models of the atom and how our views of the atom have changed over time. And it talks about how the electron cloud model is the current model of the atom. Last week, the first photo of a hydrogen atom was taken using a quantum microscope. The image confirms hydrogen's wave function. That is, we see the electron modeling a probability cloud around the atom, with regions of high intensity where expected as well as nodes where the electron does not appear. That is, we see the electron modeling a probability cloud around the atom, with regions of high intensity where expected as well as nodes where the electron does not appear. Hydrogen was chosen because it has the simplest electron configuration, just one electron in the lowest energy state. The research team is going to attempt to get an image of helium next. Heavier elements will be much more difficult, however. Thank you for watching the Chemistry Question. Be sure to subscribe and leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below. Until next time.
Fulcrum there that doesn't move. You know, and that's one thing science can't see, so yet they deny it exists. It's not just I can't see it or I don't know it's there. It's that, no, that doesn't exist. It must be something in the seesaw, the plank of wood itself. Let's look at this particle of the wood and try to use that to describe the motion of the wood. Well, that kind of approach is failing. I mean, there's no, it leaves you with all these disproportionate theories that they're trying to marry together. You have, 100 different explanations from string theory to the 500th Planck, all the way down to quantum this and quantum that, and somewhere they're trying to marry all these disproportionate theories together to create one big grand unified theory. Well, less is more. The simplest explanation is always the truest. And I have not encountered a model yet that's simpler than the cubic wave field model and more explanatory in the effects of motion, because I myself know that even at the center of myself, when I calm myself from an emotional, back and forth, I can think more clearly. I mean, you don't have clear thoughts in horizontal thinking. You're stuck on the seesaw. But when you become vertical, when you think vertically like the great geniuses do, you complete the cross and you can access the totality of your being to bring into existence new ways, new approaches, solutions, if you will. They don't call it a soul-lution for nothing. I mean, you're bringing it down where it never existed into being. And so you're learning to manifest creative principles within your own life that, how can you fix somebody else if you can't even fix yourself? That's, again, the great self-work is what all this philosophy is here to do. The science is the act of acting out your concepts into physical form. There's a very real process to that, and I think it's what makes their work some of the greatest work out there. It's inspirational.
Now, if you notice, that standing wave is going to have areas where it's not moving at all. And that's due to destructive interference, where the waves are canceling each other out. And we call those in physics nodes, areas where it's not moving. And then we're going to have total constructive interference in certain areas, and we call those antinodes. That's where it's moving the maximum amount back and forth and back and forth.
And so we have multiplying and dividing universe into pairs of opposite conditions of compression and expansion, two opposite pressures which make it possible to run our engines and do all the things we have and run the engine of our heartbeat and so forth. But the fulcrum of every lever extension, every seesaw motion, the fulcrum never moves. That is at zero, and the elastic bands will pull together and disappear into the light from which it came, into the zero light from which it came.
The outstanding demonstration of the principle of like conditions, seeking like, is in the elements of matter. If opposites attracted opposites according to present concepts, it would be impossible to gather together 1 ounce of the same elements. All elements seek their kind. In any chemical decomposition of compounded mixtures, each element seeks and finds similarly conditioned elements. Nature's gyroscopic principle does this automatically. Every element has its own gyroscopic relation to the axis and amplitude of its wave. Each seeks that relation of pressure and moved until it finds itself in the orbit of its own gyroscopic plane of pressure. Behold in me the light of all knowing. In light is all idea of knowing. In divided light of me, the thinking of my knowing is recorded in moving imaged forms of my imagining, which reflected each divided one into its opposed one to manifest my knowing. Each mirrors light of each to the other one to manifest my knowing through their mirrorings. Know thou that moving things move not, their moving is but seeming. Know thou also that moving things also sense moving things and know them not, for moving things have not in them but their seeming moving. Moving light of my thinking's mirrorings is my universe of image building in lights of my imaginings. These have no being, for they are not me. I alone have being. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 12. Light. Light cannot be seen, it can only be known. Light is still. The sense of sight cannot respond to stillness. That which the eyes feel and believe to be light is but wave motion simulating the idea of light. Like all things else in this electric wave universe, the idea of light cannot be produced. Electric waves simulate idea only. They do not become idea. When man sees the light of the sun, he believes that he is actually seeing light when the nerves of his eyes are but feeling the intense, rapid, shortwave vibrations of the kind of wave motion which he senses as incandescence. The intensely vibrant electric current mirrored into the senses of the eyes fairly burns them. They cannot stand that high rate of vibration. The eyes would be destroyed by such a vibration, but light would not be the cause of that destruction. Fast motion, simulating light, would be the cause. It would be like sending a high voltage electric current over a wire so fine that the current would burn it out. Man likewise cannot see darkness. The nerves of his eyes which sense motion slow down to a rate of vibration which he can no longer feel. Man is so accustomed to the idea that he actually sees light in various intensities illuminating various substances to greater or lesser degree that it is difficult for him to realize that his own senses are but acting as mirrors to reflect various intensities of wave motion, but that is all that is happening. Every electrically conditioned thing in nature reflects the vibrations of every other thing to fulfill its desire to synchronize its vibrations with every other thing. All matter is the motion of light. All motion is expressed in waves. All light waves are mirrors which reflect each other's condition unto the farthermost star. This is an electrically conditioned wave universe. All wave conditions are forever seeking oneness. For this reason, all sensation responds to all other sensation. Is light a wave or corpuscle? Much controversy has arisen as to whether light is corpuscular, as Newton claimed it to be, or a wave. There is much evidence in favor of both theories. It is both. Light is expressed by motion. All motion is wave motion. All waves are expressed by fields of equal and opposite pressures of two-way motion. The entire volume within wave fields is filled with the two opposite expressions of motion. The positive expressions, which compresses light into solids, and the negative expression, which expands it into space surrounding solids. All space within wave fields is curved. Curvature ends at planes of zero curvature, which bound all wave fields. These boundary planes of omnipresent magnetic light act as mirrors to reflect all curvature into all other wave fields in the universe, and as fulcrums from which motion in one wave field is universally repeated. All matter is wave motion. Together these constitute what we call matter and space. It has been difficult to conceive light as being purely corpuscular, for light is presumed to fill all space. Space is not empty. It is full of wave motion. Corpuscles of matter are one half of wave cycles of light. Space is the other half. There need be no mystery as to whether light is corpuscular or wave, for waves of motion which simulate the light and darkness of space are all there is. The light and motion of solid matter and of gaseous matter of space differs only in volume and condition. Water of earth is compressed into small volume, while water of the heavens is expanded thousands of times in volume. Each condition is the opposite half of the cycle of water. Water vapor is water turned inside out. It again becomes water by turning outside in. Expansion, contraction, sequences result from this process. All matter is simulated light. Water of the heavens still is water, and it still is light waves. No change whatsoever has taken place between the waters of earth and those of the heavens except a change of its condition from positive to negative preponderance. This change is due solely to a change of its direction in respect to its center of gravity. All dense cold matter such as iron, stone, wood, and all growing or decaying things are light. We do not think of them as light, but all are waves of motion, and all waves of motion are light. Light is all there is in the spiritual universe of knowing, and simulation of that light in opposite extensions is all there is in the electric wave universe of sensing. The simulation of light in matter is not light. There is no light in matter. Perhaps the confusion which attends this idea would be lessened if we classify everything concerning the spiritual universe, such as life, intelligence, truth, power, knowledge, and balance, as being the one light of knowing, and everything concerning matter and motion as being the two simulated lights of thinking. Thinking expresses knowing in matter, but matter does not think, nor does it know. Thinking also expresses life, truth, idea, power, and balance by recording the ideas of those qualities in the two lights of matter in motion. But matter does not live, nor is it truth, balance, or idea, even though it simulates those spiritual qualities. Man's confusion concerning this differentiation lies in his long assumption of the reality of matter. His assumption that his body is his self, that his knowledge is in his brain, and that he lives and dies because his body integrates and disintegrates, has been so fundamental a part of his thinking that it is difficult for him to reverse his thinking to the fact that matter is but motion and has no reality beyond simulating reality. The light which we think we see is but motion. We do not see light. We feel the wave vibrations set up by the motion which simulates light. But the motion of electric waves which simulate light is not that which it simulates. Confusion concerning light corpuscles. There is much confusion concerning the many kinds of particles of matter, such as electrons, protons, photons, neutrons, and others. These many particles are supposedly different because of the belief that some are negatively charged, some are positively charged, and some are so equally charged that one supposedly neutralizes the other. There is no such condition in nature as negative charge, nor are there negatively charged particles. Charge and discharge are opposite conditions, as filling and emptying, or compressing and expanding are opposite conditions. Compressing bodies are charging into higher potential conditions. Conversely, expanding bodies are discharging into lower potential conditions. To describe an electron as a negatively charged body is equivalent to saying that it is an expanding, contracting body. Contracting and expanding bodies move in opposite directions. Contracting bodies more radially inward toward mass centers, and expanding bodies more radially outward toward space, which surrounds masses. In this two-way universe, light which is inwardly directed toward gravity charges mass and discharges space. When directed toward space, it charges space and discharges mass. All direction of force in nature is spiral. The charging condition is positive. It multiplies speed of motion into density of substance. The principle of multiplication of motion because of decrease of volume is the cause of the acceleration of gravity. The discharging condition is negative. It divides speed of motion into tenuity of substance. The principle of the division of motion because of expansion of volume is the cause of the deceleration of radiation. One can better comprehend this principle by knowing that what we call substance is purely motion. Motion simulates substance by its variations of pressures, its speed, and its gyroscopic relation to its wave axis. Particles are variously conditioned as to pressure, but there are no different kinds of particles. All are light waves wound up into particles which are doubly charged. Their position at any one point in their wave causes them to have the electric condition appropriate for that point. Light particles are forever moving in their octave waves. All are either heading toward their cathode or their anode, which means toward vacuity or gravity. They are all moving either inward or outward, spirally. And I'm breaking with tradition. I'm going to stop in the middle of chapter 12. I gotta run. But I think this is going to be a full segment for part 4. Thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Let me know what you think about this. And take care till next time.
Spherical wave structures consisting of an outgoing wave.
Just in case you were wondering what I was putting in your coffee cup.
Mathematicians are fairly happy with this because these are the
P.S.
only two possible solutions.
Thank you for that tip, Shop Dog.
Equations.
I tried it this morning. I think I shook something loose because of
Now
it.
the center of this
That whole
structure
look both ways before you
behaves
cross.
just like a particle.
Thank you.
The only problem
Thank
is
you so much
not
for
many
watching
people know it yet.
part 5
Not many
of
people
The Secret of
investigate
Light by Walter Russell. I hope you guys enjoy this. Let me know, what ideas do you get from this? Thanks for watching. We're in chapter 12, and here we go. All light particles are either expressing the mother light principle or the father light principle. For example, if a particle is on the amplitude of the wave, it would be a true sphere, and as a true sphere it would be neither positive nor negative. It might then appropriately be called a neutron. A particle which is spirally heading inward toward the apex of a vortex, in the process of becoming a sphere, might appropriately be called a proton because of its expressing the father light principle. Again, if it is moving spirally outward, it could appropriately be called an electron because it would then be discharging in excess of its charge or expanding in excess of its contraction. Light rays, for example, leaving the sun are discharging the sun. They are also discharging themselves because they are expanding into greater volume. They are also lowering their own potential by multiplying their volume. They reverse their polarity when radially converging upon the Earth. They are then charging the Earth and themselves by contracting into smaller volume and are simultaneously multiplying their own potential by thus contracting. Semi-cyclic alteration. In an electric current, there is a constant interchange between anode and cathode, or positive and negative poles. A light particle expands as it leaves the anode in an outward radial direction and contracts as it radially approaches the anode. This light particle has been the same light particle at all times in all parts of its journey. Its variation of charge and discharge, its direction of motion, and the condition of wave pressure in which it finds itself at any time are the sole reasons for its changing from one condition to another. The light particles are all the same light particles, all being different only in pressure condition. This is also true of the elements of matter. whether they be iron, carbon, silicon, bismuth, or radium. All are composed of the same kind of light particles. They all seem to have different qualities and attributes, but those qualities and attributes are likewise given to them purely by the positions they occupy in their waves. All things simulate light. A particle of light, which belongs to an atomic system of sodium, has in it all of the entire range of the elements, besides all of every other creating thing in the universe. It acts to carry out the purposefulness of the idea of sodium simply because it is in the pressure condition of sodium, and is a part of the unfolding pattern of the seed of inert gas, of the octave from which it has unfolded. If that same particle unfolded from the seed of the oak, it would be part of the wood fiber of its trunk or leaf, or of the chlorophyll which colored its leaves, but it would be the same kind of particle while fulfilling the purpose of cellulose, as while fulfilling the purpose of sodium. All matter in this universe is but differently conditioned, motion simulating light, and all differences in condition are pressure differences.
Of having the standard model of particle physics. In other words, we have figured out what the most basic elements of matter are given the level of smashing that we can do. And this is it. It's a very successful theory. It consists of some fundamental particles, quarks, up and down quarks, and leptons, like electrons and neutrinos. They come in a mysterious triplicate of 3 generations. No one knows why exactly, though we'll get to that at the end. It's a quantum field theory. Okay? And the quantum field theory has symmetries in it that tell how to combine these together to make protons and neutrons and everything else we know. Those same symmetries associate with different force particles. The photon is the force of electromagnetic. We have strong forces. Those same symmetries say how these things interact and build everything else out. It's a very complicated theory. It has lots of math. But with this theory, you can make thousands of predictions. And thousands of experiments have been done testing it, and in every case, the theory agrees with experiment. So whether you like it or not, this standard model of particle physics is the best description we have of nature, and it works. Okay? So we are forced to kind of use this model by experiment. That's how science works. Now, you could ask, if the theory works so well, why are we still working so hard, excitingly, to build these particle accelerators and test this theory? I said it worked. In fact, it's because there's a troublesome part of this theory, and it has to do with this big Higgs, H, over here. Okay? When people first worked out the symmetries in this theory and how to use those symmetries to predict how things go together, there was a troublesome point. And the troublesome point was that those same symmetries imply that every fundamental particle is massless, has no mass. Okay? Now, massless particles can exist. Particles of light, photons coming out of the light bulb there, are massless. And of course, particles of light move at the speed of light. In fact, what is the case is that any particle that's massless has to move at the speed of light. Okay? Electrons have a mass. The atoms in my hands have mass. And the reason I can move my hand at a foot per second like that is because I have mass. If I didn't, my hand would have to move at the speed of light. Okay? So the fundamental symmetries that make this theory work say that every particle is massless. Sounds like something terribly wrong with this theory. So what to do about that? Well, in 1964, this guy, Peter Higgs, and some of his friends came up with an idea. A very possible but very weird solution. He said, it's called the Higgs mechanism. Okay, let's suppose the particles are massless, fundamentally massless, no mass. Okay? But take the universe and fill it, completely fill it with a quantum field, a smooth field that acts to slow down the particles. Okay? So it's kind of like imagining this room full of water, and I move my hand, and I have to move it through water, and that slows my hand down. Okay? So this is the idea of the Higgs mechanism. The universe is filled with this all-pervading, omnipresent field, okay, called the Higgs field. If it wasn't for this field, things would move at the speed of light. In fact, intrinsically, the electrons in my hand want to go at the speed of light, but they can't because they keep interacting with this Higgs field. Okay? So pretty weird, pretty weird. what makes the difference? Why are some things heavier than others? Well, in this theory, everything is massless pretty much, except that heavy things interact more strongly. Like moving a pencil through water is easy. Moving a ping pong paddle is hard. Right? So how heavy something is in this theory is just how strongly it interacts with this omnipresent Higgs field. Okay? Now, can you feel this Higgs field? I mean, this is what the Standard Model says. This room is filled with it. Can you feel it? Well, in a sense, you can feel it because otherwise your hands would be moving fast. The weight that you feel is, in fact, interaction with the Higgs field. So we are swimming in this invisible field. Now, there are other invisible fields here, right? Like the Earth's magnetic field is right here in this room. You can't really feel it, but if you have a compass, it would line up and you could do it. The radio transmitters around San Diego are filling this room with electromagnetic waves. You can't feel them, right? They're going right through your body. But you take a radio in here, and it'll move the electrons, and you can pick up, you can feel those fields. Okay? Now, and even the light coming out of this light bulb is, in fact, electromagnetic radiation, ripples in that electromagnetic field. But there's a big difference between these fields and the Higgs fields. If I turn off the lights, if I turn off the radio transmitters, if I stop the dynamo action in the Earth's center, then, in fact, the electromagnetic fields will die away, and we'll have no electromagnetic field here. The Higgs field is different. The Higgs field is there even without sources. You can't turn it off. If you could turn it off, everything would start moving at the speed of light. Okay? So you can't turn it off. So we say it's there even with no source. It's a vacuum field. It's not a free parameter of the theory. We know that trillions of tons per cc is not an adjustable parameter at this point because we've measured, it's measured. What can we say?
Light is all there is in the spiritual universe of knowing, and simulation of that light in opposite extensions is all there is in the electric wave universe of sensing. The simulation of light in matter is not light. There is no light in matter. Perhaps the confusion which attends this idea would be lessened if we classify everything concerning the spiritual universe, such as life, intelligence, truth, power, knowledge, and balance as being the one light of knowing, and everything concerning matter and motion as being the two simulated lights of thinking. Thinking expresses knowing in matter, but matter does not think, nor does it know. Thinking also expresses life, truth, idea, power, and balance by recording the ideas of those qualities in the two lights of matter in motion. But matter does not live, nor is it truth, balance, or idea, even though it simulates those spiritual qualities. Man's confusion concerning this differentiation lies in his long assumption of the reality of matter, his assumption that his body is his self, that his knowledge is in his brain, and that he lives and dies because his body integrates and disintegrates, has been so fundamental a part of his thinking that it is difficult for him to reverse his thinking to the fact that matter is but motion and has no reality beyond simulating reality. The light which we think we see is but motion. We do not see light. We feel the wave vibrations set up by the motion which simulates light. But the motion of electric waves which simulate light is not that which it simulates. Confusion concerning light corpuscles. There is much confusion concerning the many kinds of particles of matter, such as electrons, protons, photons, neutrons, and others. These many particles are supposedly different because of the belief that some are negatively charged, some are positively charged, and some are so equally charged that one supposedly neutralizes the other. There is no such condition in nature as negative charge, nor are there negatively charged particles. Charge and discharge are opposite conditions, as filling and emptying, or compressing and expanding are opposite conditions. Compressing bodies are charging into higher potential conditions. Conversely, expanding bodies are discharging into lower potential conditions. To describe an electron as a negatively charged body is equivalent to saying that it is an expanding, contracting body. Contracting and expanding bodies move in opposite directions. Contracting bodies more radially inward toward mass centers, and expanding bodies more radially outward toward space, which surrounds masses. In this two-way universe, light which is inwardly directed toward gravity charges mass and discharges space. When directed toward space, it charges space and discharges mass. All direction of force in nature is spiral. The charging condition is positive. It multiplies speed of motion into density of substance. The principle of multiplication of motion because of decrease of volume is the cause of the acceleration of gravity. The discharging condition is negative. It divides speed of motion into tenuity of substance. The principle of the division of motion because of expansion of volume is the cause of the deceleration of radiation. One can better comprehend this principle by knowing that what we call substance is purely motion. Motion simulates substance by its variations of pressures, its speed, and its gyroscopic relation to its wave axis. Particles are variously conditioned as to pressure, but there are no different kinds of particles. All are light waves wound up into particles which are doubly charged. Their position at any one point in their wave causes them to have the electric condition appropriate for that point. Light particles are forever moving in their octave waves. All are either heading toward their cathode or their anode, which means toward vacuity or gravity. They are all moving either inward or outward, spirally.
People think our particles are spherical wave structures consisting of an outgoing wave combined with an in wave. Mathematicians are fairly happy with this because these are the only two possible solutions of the equations. So that part is okay. Now the center of this structure behaves just like a particle. The only problem is not many people know it yet, because not many people have investigated it.
About that. You know, for years I wondered what was that blackness and why did it sweep down to where it was just a sliver, like about a half-inch of white light. And years later, God revealed it to me. It was really a historical record of my life. That for all the years that I had lived, I was in darkness. And God gave me a space.
From the Divine Iliad. The Secret of Light, Part 1. All power is from the One. All power returns to the One. Omniscience, the universe of knowing. Chapter 1, the eternal question. Who am I? What am I? Why am I? Whither am I bound? What is my relation to the universe, to man, and to God? What is truth? How am I to know truth? Whence cometh my power? What is the source of my power? How am I to find balance? In my dealings with my fellow men, now can you see why I fell in love with this guy immediately? Hello. How am I to find balance? In my dealings with my fellow men, how am I to know that balance in our interchange, which will enrich both him and me? Countless are the religious teachings, and many are the commandments to goodness, but goodness is still veiled from my eyes, like a thick mist which hides thy light, which I vainly seek. I stumble into its darkness, unbalanced I fall. O thou unseen one, tear from my eyes the blinding veil which hides the path to thy light, that I may find my way to thee. That is the cry of the ages. That is the unanswered question which is arising from the heart of this awakening generation. Civilization progresses in cycles. New comprehension periodically transforms mankind into higher beings. A new cycle of 3,000 years' duration is now in its birth throes. God's omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence are centered in the consciousness of every man, but few there are who know of the oneness of their self-soul with the universal self-soul. Man requires many millennia to begin to be aware of that. Each cycle of man brings him nearer to his awareness of his oneness with the light of his self-source. Man lives in a bewildering, complex world of effect, of which he knows not the cause, because of its seemingly infinite multiplicity and simple underlying principle of balance in all things. He, therefore, complexes truth until its many angles, sides, and facets have lost balance with each other and with him. Truth is simple. Balance is simple. Rhythmic balanced interchange between all pairs of opposite expressions in natural phenomena and in human relations is the consummate art of God's universe of light. It is also the law. In this one fundamental universal law lies the balanced continuity of all creative expression in God's electric wave universe of two conditioned lights in seeming motion, which record God's one whole idea of creation into countless seemingly separate parts of that whole idea, the voice within. The great unanswered question of man has a simple answer. The silent voice within every man is ceaselessly whispering it to his awakening consciousness. Every desire written upon the heart of man is carried to the source, and its answer will come. But few there are who ask comprehensively, and fewer still who hear. Many are the ages of preparation for worthiness to hear it, for man's consciousness is insulated from his source by the sensations of his electrically conditioned body, which he wrongly thinks of its being his mind and his personal self. What he calls his objective human mind is but the seat of electric sensations of his body. What he mistakes for thinking is but an electric awareness of things sensed and recorded within the cells of his brain for repetitive usage through what is termed memories. Memories have no more relation to knowledge of universal mind which is in man than Victrola records are related to the source of their recordings. What he thinks of as his living body is but an electrically motivated machine which simulates life through motion extended to it from its centering self-soul, which alone lives and wills the body to move. What he calls his subjective mind is his consciousness, his spiritual storehouse of all knowledge, all power, and all presence. That consciousness is his self, his eternal self, through which his omniscience, omnipresence, and omnipotence are expressed as he slowly becomes aware of his presence within him. The electrically oscillating nerve wires which operate his bodily mechanism act almost entirely through automatic reflexes and instinctive control, and to a very little extent through mental decisions. Each cell and organ of his body has an electrical awareness of its purpose, and each fulfills that purpose without any mental action whatsoever upon the part of the intelligence which occupies that body. The heartbeat, for example, is purely automatic. The white corpuscles of the blood rush to repair an injury to the body as automatically as a bell rings when a button is pushed. In this body and its electric recording brain, man thinks that he thinks and lives, loves and dies. He thinks himself conscious while awake and unconscious while sleeping, unaware that in all nature there is no such condition as unconsciousness, when sensation, ceases in sleep. Man does not say that his tooth is unconscious when it is put to sleep by short-circuiting the electric current in the nerve wire, which gives sensed electrical awareness to his tooth. He knows that his tooth cannot be conscious, but he does not know that his body cannot be conscious, nor does he yet know that consciousness never sleeps.
The light on the camera, on the television screen, never goes out. Different images appear, and before we drop the body, we have no idea what those images will be.
Genesis 1. In the beginning, God, the Father. The Father is light, the still light of the Spirit, whom no man can see. The dwelling place of the Father is the kingdom of heaven, and it is without form and void. In the light is a seed of creation, and the light is father of the seed. In the light is being, and in the seed is desire for being. And desire in the seed is soul in the seed. The Father in heaven knows his idea. He knows it as one, the undivided one. In the Father light is the seed of all knowing. In him is twofold desire to unfold and refold his seed of all knowing into imaged forms of his imagining, by dividing wholeness into parts, stillness into motion, unchanging into changing, unconditioned into conditioned, void into form, infinity into measure, eternity into time, and immortality into mortality. 2. The Spirit of God moved to fulfill his two desires and said, "Let there be light, and let darkness shine out of light, and light out of darkness." And it was so. The one light of the Father in his kingdom of heaven divided the void. And behold, two father-mother lights of nightless suns shone out of the darkness of the void, and day appeared in undivided oneness of everlasting day. And the Father centered his sons as seed of his desire that forms should appear from formless light, to fulfill his desire for division of the one into many divided ones formed in the image of his imagining. And mighty polar breathings of desire within the nightless suns begat earth's to coarse suns, far heavens, to divide the day and give night to day to mate the day. And lo, night was born on earth's from nightless days, and day was born from night. And God saw that it was good that each of the two begat from one, was born of each other, to disappear into the one, to reappear as the one. Thus the one light of God's knowing extended to the two of his thinking, pulsed as the three of all creating things, the one centering the two extended from the one, the Spirit, the Father-Mother polarity of light, the Trinity centering the shafts of creation, seeming fulcrum of its heartbeat, all one. 3. The manner of the extension of God's knowing to his thinking was in this wise. The Father of the kingdom extended his arms of still light unto his heaven, and said to one, "Sit thou here and look thou inward. Be thou seed of my knowing, for repeating my thinking. Refold thou the forms of my imagining within thy stillness, and give them back to me for resurrection in the imaged forms of my imagining. Father, thou my thinking, and let thy name be North, for north in light means inward breathing from the heavens toward oneness in the seed. Guide thou the unfolding forms of my imagining from seed of thee to centering seed of me." And to the other light, the centering Spirit said, "Sit thou here and look thou outward. Be thou womb of my knowing, for borning my thinking. Unfold thou my seed from the stillness of seed, and give earth forms of them to heavens to manifest me. Mother thou my thinking, and let thy name be south. For south in light means outward breathing from the seed into their heavens. Interweave thou thy threads of light of earths and suns with threads of light from heavens into patterns of my thinking, extended from my knowing to manifest my knowing. 4. To north and south the Father said, Behold in thee and me the firmament of my desiring to mirror the light of my knowing into father-mother forms of my imagining. And earths appeared below and heavens above the firmament, each being each mirrored from the other to become the other. And lo, all imaginings in seed of earths unfolded into the heavens, for heavens refolding into patterned seed of earths for earth's reborning. And behold, God's imaginings pulsed with light of his imaginings within his omnipresent kingdom. In this wise God divided the waters from the waters, those which were under the firmament from those which were above the firmament, and each was of each, and each of the other. And God saw that it was good. All things were thus divided, as two halves of one, which never could be one, but must forever born the other from each other to manifest the knowing of the one as the two opposed desires of his thinking. 5. And all knowing was in the light, and God sowed seed sons of all knowing light unto far reaches of his firmament, for borning into pattern images of his imagining. And the earth brought forth grass and herb, yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 1:12. And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly, after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. Genesis 1:20-22. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle, and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Genesis 1:24-25. 6. And it was that God had whispered to man for long ages while man was new, but man heard not God's whispering. And God said, Let us give man knowing, and make him in our image after our likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Genesis 1:26. And lo, man knew God in him, and emerged from the dark of his jungle into dawn of the light in him, and turned his eyes upward toward the mount of his ascension from sensing to knowing. And man desired his ascension to the light. And God saw that it was good, and dwelt within man to give him the light of all knowing, as awakening man desired the light of all knowing. Great art is simple. My universe is great art, for it is simple. Great art is balanced. My universe is consummate art, for it is balanced simplicity. My universe is one in which many things have majestic measure, and again another many have measure too fine for sensing. Yet I have not one law for majestic things, and another law for things which are beyond the sensing. I have but one law for all my opposed pairs of creating things, and that law needs but one word to spell it out. So hear me when I've always known that. The truth is simple. It always is. If you're confused, if someone's trying to tell you the truth and you can't figure it out, it's not wholly the truth. I've always known that. So thank you. Thank you. I have but one law for all my opposed pairs of creating things, and that law needs but one word to spell it out. So hear me when I say that the one word of my one law is balance. And if man needs two words to aid him in his knowing of the workings of that law, those two words are balanced interchange. If man still needs more words to aid his knowing of my one law, give to him another one, and let those three words be rhythmic balanced interchange. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 3, The Law of Balance. The underlying law of creation is rhythmic balanced interchange in all transactions in nature. It is the one principle upon which the continuity of the universe depends. Likewise, it is the one principle upon which the continuity of man's transactions, his health and happiness depend. It is the manifestation of God's two opposing desires in all processes of creation. Balance is the principle of unity, of oneness. In it is the stability which lies in cause. Balance is the foundation of the universe. Balanced interchange simulates oneness by interchange between pairs of opposites. It is the principle of equal giving between all moving pairs of unbalanced opposites, which constitute this dual electric universe. In it is the instability of effect. Instability is forever seeking to find stability. It can never find it, but it can simulate it by balancing its instability through equality of interchange. Rhythmic balanced interchange is the principle of continuity of effect. Balanced interchange between opposites repeats simulation of stability, and rhythmic balanced interchange continues that repetition. Obedience to the one law is absolute. Rhythmic balanced interchange is the inviolate law which must be obeyed. Nature persistently violates it, and nature instantly pays the price of its violations in its storms, tornadoes, crashing avalanche, and tragedy of field, forest, and jungle. Man persistently violates it and instantly pays the price of his violation in his crashing business failures, enmities, unhappiness, and illness. All the storms of earth cannot affect the balance of the earth, for balance in the universe cannot be upset. The earth continues in its fixed, balanced orbit with so much precision that its position can be determined at any time to the split second. If the earth disobeyed this law by the slightest variance, its oceans would sweep its continents clear of all living and growing things. Man must pay for disobedience. Man's disobedience to the law cannot affect the balance of man in his whole journey, for every unbalanced action of his must eventually be balanced. Man is on his way to his cosmic goal of oneness with his Creator, and he can in no way deviate from that fixed orbit, which will eventually take him to his destination of glory in the high heavens. By disobeying the law, he is but hurting himself while on his journey. But he must make the journey and must balance every unbalanced action while on the way. It is as though a man on a great ocean liner disobeyed the laws of the ship. In spite of his disobedience, the ship is taking him to his destination, and he must go with it. Likewise, he has hurt himself by lessening the happiness of his journey. The whole principle of creation lies in equal giving. The oneness of the light is divided into an equal and opposite two, and all interchange between the two must be equal in their giving. God's division of the light into a seeming two is manifested in nature by electric waves of two opposing lights, springing from the still sea of God's magnetic light, just as waves of water spring from the still ocean. The outstanding characteristic of waves is that they forever interchange. Troughs become crests, and crests become troughs. Gravity, pressure above and below their axes is equal. So long as equality of interchange continues rhythmically, waves repeat their interchange. When the sloping sand at the beach prevents this equality of rhythmic balanced interchange, the waves accumulate unbalanced until they crash on the shore. Every transaction in human relations either continues or discontinues in accord with obedience or disobedience to this one law. A man who sells and gives less value for what is given to him lays the foundation for his own wreckage. He finds it ever harder to sell and loses many purchasers by gaining their ill will. He who gives equally for what is given to him multiplies his purchasers and prospers by gaining their goodwill. The pulse beat, the swinging pendulum, the inbreathing and outbreathing of living things all exemplify God's one law of rhythmic balanced interchange. Any deviation from that law in the heartbeat of a man would endanger his continuance. But when there is a rhythmic balanced interchange between the two compression and expansion opposites, man's life continues to function at maximum. Man has free right to choose his own actions, but he must balance those actions with equal and opposite reactions until he learns that God's one law must be obeyed. This God holds inviolate. The whole purpose of life is to learn how to manifest God in truth and the law. The lesson is a hard one, but man himself makes it hard by his unknowing of the law. As man gradually knows his purpose and the law by knowing God in him, life becomes more and more beautiful and man more powerful in his manifestation of power. Man's power lies in giving. He must learn to give as nature gives. Each half of a cycle eternally gives to the other half for regiving. Nature forever unfolds into many for the purpose of refolding into one. Each individual must manifest this universal law. The desire of some so-called apron-string parents to run their children's lives for them, often claiming that they have sacrificed their very own lives for them, are taking from their children, not giving. They are taking away the initiative children need to complete their own cycles. They must live their own lives for themselves. Man must know the principle of creation, giving between each interchanging opposite half of each cycle for the purpose of repeating its giving. This is universal law, and each individual must manifest this law. Man will forever war with man until he learns to give his all with the full expectation of equal receiving, and never taking that which is not given as an earned reward for his giving. All things are one, but made to appear as two extensions of the centered one. Know thou that the two extensions of my recorded thinking are divided by the one, which centers the two, the one balancing the two, the one controlling the two. I, the one, am not divided into two, as pairs of opposites of me. I divided the two extensions of my thinking, but I am not my thinking, nor am I two. When man thinketh man alone, denying me, then is man's image man's, not mine, and man's, for the pattern of my balanced, rhythmic images within man may not be seen in him, nor may the glory of my light be seen in him or known by him. When man thinketh me, through knowing me, then is he patterned by my image, and I am he. When man thinketh me in him, then is man's balance absolute. When man so thinketh, then hath he all power that I, thy father, mother, thinker of creation hath. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 4, the source of power. God, the Creator, is power. There is no other power. All energy lies within the stillness of the one magnetic light of God. God is mind, the intelligence of the universe. In God's mind is one idea, which God knows as one whole idea. In God's mind is desire to give creative expression to that one idea by thinking it into parts. Desire in the light of mind is the power quality of mind. Desire is the soul of mind, the will of mind. God expresses the desire of mind to manifest his idea by creating this electric wave universe. This electric universe is the sole product of God's mind. All product of God or man is the result of desire of mind to create product. The power to create product is in mind. It is not in the product. product has no power in itself to produce itself. This assumption that product has power within itself to produce itself is another of man's illusions, which has deceived the senses of man during these early days of his unfolding. It is as though the architect gave to his cathedral the power of creating itself. The cathedral is an expression of desire of the architect to give form to the idea of his knowing. The power to create the idea is in the knowing. The idea of the cathedral already exists. The eyes of the spirit can see its spiritual image as clearly as the eyes of the body can sense it in stone as product of his knowing. The expression of power to create the idea as product lies in the electric action of thinking idea at rest in the light of mind into the two lights of waves of motion which simulate that idea. As servant of mind, electricity gives moving form to the idea by performing the work necessary to produce it. The power to thus produce does not lie in electricity nor in motion. It lies in desire of mind only. Without that desire, creation could not be. Without desire of mind, in man his power to create could not be. Mind is light at rest. Desire of mind is expressed through waves of light in motion. The expression of power in waves is not power. All of the power of the ocean is in its stillness, whether expressed or not. Likewise, all of the power of light is in the stillness of its knowing, whether expressed by light waves or not. All expressions of energy spring from rest, seek a point of rest, and return to a condition of rest. The power of a moving lever is not in the lever nor in its motion. It is in the stillness of its fulcrum, from which it borrows its ability to manifest the power of its fulcrum. God is the fulcrum of man and of the universe. Neither man nor any moving thing in the universe has power within himself to do anything. All power expressed by man must be extended directly from the Father in heaven to his Father-Mother lights of earths and heavens which manifest him. The mechanical principle by means of which power is expressed by the Creator is in the light waves of two-way motion which record his two-way thinking. Waves are two-way cycles which are divided equally to express the two desires of mind, to create form images of mind imagining, and to destroy those forms sequentially for reforming. Waves of motion spring from the stillness of the universal equilibrium. They are the universal heartbeat which manifests eternal life and power in God's stillness by eternal repetitions of simulated life and power as expressed in waves of motion. Waves of motion express the power of desire for unbalance and motion which is in light at rest. And they also express the opposite desire for balance and rest which is in motion. Desire in the one light of mind is positive. Its expression in the two lights of opposed motion is negative. Every expression of power in nature is negated by its opposite expression. The senses are limited to the perception of but one of these negations at a time, and then only in small fractions of whole cycles. If the senses could record the whole of each cycle both ways, they would record stillness, not motion, for every action would be voided by its oppositely flowing reaction. For I have ordained that the Father-Mother of my image stage, its players and its motions become an equal to extension, retraction of my light. An equal to must be an equal to, for desire of each to outbalance each would upset my spatial stage and all the Father-Mother offspring of my stage. Therefore, I have set a measure in my high heavens to balance each with each, that each might have its all, but not one whit more, nor lose aught, nor gain one whit more. Wherefore I, the One, watch o'er all my creating pairs of Father-Mother things, with my two measuring eyes to balance that which fathers my universe with that which mothers it. And as my sexed electric universe is two, so also must its watchful measuring eyes be two, centered by another one, from which the two extend and seem to move as that mirage expression of my thinking seems to move. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 5. This sexed electric universe. The still magnetic light of the Father of all creation is one. The one light is the positive principle. It is cause. The moving electric Father-Mother lights of all creation are two. The two are opposites of each other. The two negate each other. They are the intercommunicating nerves of the universal body, like those of man's body through which he senses things. They have not existence save in awareness of each other. They are but mirage extensions of mind, imagining which senses that which they but manifest. Each electric opposite conditions the other with sex unbalance. Each sexed condition gives unbalance to the other to separate each from each, to increase the power of each to oppose each. Each then gives of itself to the other to void the unbalanced condition of each other. In order to effect balance in each must become the other. The charging one must discharge, and the discharged one must charge. Voidance of unbalance can only come that way. Likewise, repetition can only come that way. The electric universe is the negative principle. It is the effect. The two moving lights of the electric universe are two equal halves which express themselves in opposite directions. Their sole purpose is to oppose. Opposites which violently oppose and void each other can never become one, nor can they attract each other. Sex defined. Hello! Sex is the division of a balanced equilibrium condition into two equally unbalanced conditions which negate each other periodically for the purpose of repeating the two unbalanced conditions. Sex is the creative principle. It is the dual desire force in mind for expressing its one idea. Without a division of the one unconditioned light into two seemingly conditioned lights, creation could not be. Sex is not a thing, it is a condition of a thing. An electrically balanced condition of anything is sexless, whether it be man, woman, electric battery, or the atmosphere. A sexed condition is an unbalanced condition. An electric battery which is fully charged is dually unbalanced by the opposite electric pressures of compression and expansion. These two opposite unbalanced conditions violently desire to return to the oneness of balance from which they were divided into one. A short circuit between the two poles of the battery will give it that balance. We then say it is dead, for it will no longer perform work by expressing its desire for balance. An unbalanced atmosphere will violently seek a balanced condition, depending upon the intensity of the unbalanced condition. When calm follows the storm, it means that desire for balance has gone out of it, for when balance has been attained by rest, motion is no longer possible. The sexed condition of unbalance in man is exactly the same in all phenomena in nature. An unbalanced sex condition in man demands balancing in the same way, and its violence depends upon its electrical measure of unbalance. When the desire is satisfied and balance is restored, man is as sexless as the dead storage battery, and for the same reason. Man is recharged into a sexed condition by his heartbeat, by the food he eats, and by his in-breathing, out-breathing. These are the generators which recharge the dead storage batteries of all the universe into sexed condition live batteries. A sexed condition and an electric condition are identical. Electricity conditions all sexless matter into its sexed condition by dividing a pressureless condition into two opposite pressures which desire release from their opposition. All of the work of the universe is performed as a result of that desire in unbalanced matter to seek rest in a balanced condition. This is a sexed electric universe in every effect of motion, whether it be in the heart of a giant sun or in the petal of a meadow violet. Every action of motion in the universe is a result of sex desire for motion from a state of rest, or for rest from a state of motion. These two sex desires of electric action and reaction are the result of the two desires of the Father to manifest His one light through the extended father-mother lights which interweave his idea of creation into the multiple forms of that idea and void them periodically for the purpose of repeating them. The desire for two-way motion in equal action and reaction is reflected in the dual electric desire to give for regiving and to unfold for refolding. Each thing in my universe is paired as opposite expressions of that thing. Neither expression is that which it expresseth. Therefore, both life and death of things which seem to live and die are neither life nor death. For all things in my universe interchange with their opposites and with all other things. Each opposite becometh the other sequentially, for I say, in me is balance. I balance all opposites of pairs of things with equal opposites of pairs of things. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 7. Sex-conditioned opposites. The entirety of this balanced universe is thus divided into unbalanced pairs of father-mother sex-conditioned sex mates for the purpose of seemingly divided universal oneness into a universe of many ones. No matter what names we use to designate one pair of sex mates from another, whether gravity and radiativity, male and female, positive and negative, charge and discharge, centripetal and centrifugal, generative and radiative, integrative and disintegrative, plus and minus, heat and cold, life and death, buyer and seller, producer and consumer, import and export, emptying and filling, inward and outward, north and south, heaven and earth, growth and decay, all of them are similarly conditioned by the two opposite electrical conditioners. In other words, they are all being either compressed or expanded if we use pressure terms, or charged and discharged if we use electrical terms. Both are the same. Likewise, all that are being compressed or charged by positive electricity are simultaneously being expanded and discharged by negative electricity to a lesser extent. Likewise, all that are being expanded by negative electricity are simultaneously being compressed and charged by positive electricity to a lesser extent. This is a two-way universe in all effects of motion, and both opposite effects are expressed in both mates simultaneously as well as sequentially. This two-way universe. Electricity is forever winding light up into hot spheres, surrounded by cold cube wave fields of space, and likewise sequentially unwinding them for rewinding. While winding them into compressed light masses, they are simultaneously unwinding to a lesser extent. Conversely, while unwinding, they are simultaneously rewinding to a lesser extent. Every opposite of a pair charges in excess of its discharge for 1/2 of its cycle. It then discharges in excess of its charging. Life and death are good examples. Life charges a body in excess of its discharge for 1/2 of its cycle, and death discharges it in excess for the other half. Likewise, the sun charges the earth during half of its 24-hour cycle in excess of its charge on the night side of the planet. The night side sequentially becomes the day side. The discharge of night then reverses to a preponderance of charge. The father-mother principle is fundamental in every expression, and both are simultaneously manifested in every expression, each being preponderant sequentially during half of each cycle. The father principle multiplies light into density and high potential. The mother principle divides it into vapors and gases of lower potential. Light is thus multiplied and divided into suns and planets surrounded by space. He's got space in quotation marks. The matter of earth is the same as the matter of heavens, with but one difference: volume. And therein lies the secret of the universal pulse beat. Space is a division of solidity into tenuity. It is also a multiplication of volume at the expense of potential. Interchange between these two unbalanced opposites is the basis of all motion in this rhythmic universe. Sex mates are two equal halves of one. They never can be one, They can never unite, for they are the opposites of motion. Opposites of motion can cease to be, and by thus ceasing to be, they can give birth to the other opposite. But they can never be other than opposite. Opposites born each other. Compression can never expand, but expansion is born from compression. Conversely, expansion can never compress, but compression is born from expansion. They can interchange with their opposites with every pulse beat, and they do. Each opposite is born from the other. Each pulse beat brings each opposite nearer to voidance of each, and complete interchange into the other. It becomes the other sequentially at the halfway point in its cycle. But it is still an opposite. Opposites oppose. They never perform any other office than to oppose. Opposites alone produces the idea of separateness in a universe of one inseparable thing. The opposite of water is water vapor. Water is a compressed condition. It is of the father light. Water vapor is the expanded condition of water. It is of the mother light. They are two halves of one which can never be one. The mother light unfolds from the father light. The father light refolds the water vapor into water. Each has been born from the other. Each is the other, but they can never unite to become one. All idea of mind is thus divided into sex pairs of opposite mates. Matter is divided into solids and gases. The gases are the solids outwardly bound toward the heavens. Solids are those same gases inwardly bound toward gravity. Heat and cold are opposites. Inwardly bound light rays generate heat from cold by compressing cold. Outwardly bound light rays degenerate heat into cold by expanding heat. It is said that cold is less heat. One might as well say that east is less west. East and west are two opposites, just as cold and heat are opposites. Opposite sex conditions born each other. Matter and space likewise are sex mates. Each has become what each is opposing the other to attain the appearance of separateness. Then each interchanges with each by breathing into and out of each other until space disintegrates matter and becomes what the other was. Space disintegrates suns and earths by the way of equators and generates them by the way of poles. Heat generated by cold by the way of poles is radiated by the way of equators. Suns thus turn inside out. Cold bores black holes right through their poles, and great suns become rings, like those in Lyria, and other ring nebulae which are plentiful in the heavens. All matter is generated by the degeneration of its opposite. Likewise, all generated matter is sequentially degenerated by the generation of its opposite. Compression in matter is balanced by an equal evacuation in space. Every unbalanced condition in nature must be balanced by an equal opposite. All borrowings from the bank of nature are debited with an amount equal to the credit extended, just as money borrowed from man's bank is debited and credited. Desire for rest follows desire for motion. The two are always two and never can become one, although the desire for oneness is with each during the entirety of its cycle. It is this desire for oneness which causes them to interchange. When credits and debits are balanced by interchange with each other, they cease to be. They do not become one. When electrical opposites thus cancel each other out by interchange of their plus and minus conditions, they do not neutralize each other, as commonly believed. They cease to be. Motion cannot be neutralized. There is no exception to this process of nature. All idea is recorded electrically in equal pairs of opposite expressions. Each of the pair cancels the other out in cyclical periodicities. Each then becomes what the other was. Generation of any idea exceeds radiation during the first half of its cycle. Radiation then exceeds generation for the second half of the cycle. Both of these simulations of the idea, as expressed by motion, disappear. The idea still exists, however. The idea is at rest in its seed, from which it can again appear in form of idea. The 2 points of rest, which are the fundamentals of every cycle, are the point of beginning at the wave axis and the point of interchange between positive and negative opposites at the wave amplitude. At these 2 rest points, motion has utterly ceased. It has not been neutralized into a condition of rest. The one light of me desires to be two. 2 sensed, warring divisions of the one spring forth from my unsensed oneness into an imaged space. 2 voiding lights of my one white light spring from their rest in unity to find rests of their own, but find not 2 but 1. For 2 rests there cannot be in my universe of 1. For I say that each light seeks rest in each where wave of my pulsed thinking meets wave. And at that mutual point of rest, each voids each in the one from which another 2 spring into their mirrored infinities. Hear thou me when I say that all things which flow from me are sex-conditioned pairs of 2, even to the cosmic dust of space, which formeth new worlds, yea, and even to the heart of blazing fires of hottest suns. Naught is there in my divided universe which is not sex-conditioned, sex-interchanging and sex-balancing. Thus, these moving pairs seek balance and voidance forever to repeat the thought patterns of my thinking in the sex-balancing voidance of their conditioning. From the Divine Iliad. Okay. Chapter. Okay. And that's going to do it for today. I think I need to go edit this and get it uploaded. So that is what I'm going to do. I hope you guys are enjoying this. So cool. So simple. So beautiful. I'm floored by this stuff. Tell me what you guys think about it. And stay tuned. I'm gonna charge on through. I'm gonna get this done and uploaded quickly. It feels like a mission. Until next time, take care.
It's still on standby. Oh my goodness, I've tried this shot 3 times. Let's do this again. Here we go.
Welcome back to part 4 of The Secret of Light by Walter Russell. We're going to start with chapter 7 in part 2. But before we do, here's just a few little tidbits for you. Anyway, I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy this next section, and let's get started. Chapter 7, The Sex Reproductive Principle. All creating things are paired as unbalanced equal and opposite sex mates. Reproduction of 2 unbalanced mates cannot be repeated until balance has first been restored. The calm surface of the ocean may be broken up into waves, but those waves cannot be repeated until the calm surface of the ocean has been restored to the equilibrium of its rest position, even though that rest position is not maintained. Reproduction begins at the rest point where the previous wave cycle ends. Reproduction of unbalance must find a fulcrum from which the wave lever may leap into wave expression for repetition of pattern. That is what creation is, merely the repetition of pattern with added pattern forever. This is a universe of waves within waves and waves without waves, pulsing waves of dual light, extending forever outward to the ends of mirrored space and reflecting back again to microscopic centers of rest from which they may again spring from rest to seek rest through dual motion but never finding it. This is a sex-divided, opposed two-way electric universe, which creates and voids through unbalanced pairs but reproduces, through voided ones. Sexes do not unite. Reproduction of dynamic sexed pairs does not come through the union of dynamic sexed pairs, but from the voidance of sex condition, and, with it, the power of dynamic sex expression reproduction. Reproduction is not the unity of two opposite halves of one pattern thing. It is the voiding of the power of dynamic expression, which all unbalanced opposites express. Reproduction is the cessation of those two unbalanced conditions, which restores a balance from which similarly patterned negative forms reverse their expressions and become positive forms. Sex opposites reproduce through sex voidance. In this manner, all patterned forms repeat their patterns sequentially. All pairs of unbalanced opposites come from God, the One, and return balanced as one to God. All unbalanced pairs of separately conditioned things must first find voidance of unbalance and voidance of opposition. They must then become their own opposites, to again acquire an unbalance necessary for another voidance and consequent repetition. All twos must become voided in the one in order to again become two. Reproduction of unbalanced opposites by unbalanced opposites is impossible. Opposition must first be voided. The dynamic must emerge from rest, and it must be voided in rest in order that it may again become dynamic. The desire for balance. All things seek balance. Two opposed, unbalanced halves of one are forever seeking to balance their opposition. Two children on a seesaw are balanced when they are on a level with their centering fulcrum. When they are on two different levels, they are unbalanced with their centering fulcrum. They are then dynamic. The fulcrum no longer centers them, although they are balanced in themselves. In such a position, they are obliged to move. Repetition of their motion is impossible while they are in balance with their fulcrum, but it is imperative when the fulcrum no longer centers them. A sexless condition is imperative before a sexed condition can be repeated. Just as all motion starts from rest and returns to rest, so does a sexed electric condition arise from a sexless one. The two sexes, therefore, cannot be united to cause reproduction. They must first be voided. Unbalanced condition and change cannot unite to reproduce unbalanced condition and change. The unbalanced condition and change must be voided in order to repeat unbalance and change. Sex opposites do not neutralize, they void. The sexes, like the two opposites of motion, cannot neutralize each other by so-called union. The dynamic cannot be neutralized. I'll stop doing that now, but I just want you guys to know that's what he's doing. Likewise, it cannot become static, but it can be voided. The static condition does not then take its place, for the static condition is eternal. It was there before the dynamic condition arose. The dynamic condition of sound, for example, arises from the static condition of silence, but sound does not become silence. Sound is voided. Silence is eternal. The dynamic conditions of sodium and chlorine do not unite to become the static condition of sodium chloride, nor are they neutralized. They must be voided before they can be repeated. Sex determined by direction of pressures. Opposites are not things, they are conditions of things. Just as heat and cold, or east and west, or inward and outward, or compression and expansion cannot unite to become one, so also the opposite sexes cannot unite, for they are but inward-outward pressures. Sex opposition is a difference in the pressure condition of things. The male condition is one of compression, the female is one of expansion. The sexes are thus differently conditioned by the two directions of electric pressures, in accord with the two opposite desires of the Creator. The difference of conditioning makes basically similar substances appear to be different things and different substances. All things are sex divided. When, therefore, any two opposed and unbalanced sex halves of one conditioned thing balance their opposed conditioning through motion, they appear to become another thing or substance. This appearance is a deception of the senses, for they do not become another thing. They become voided, and another thing from which both are extended appears in their place. In chemistry, we call these pairs stable compounds, such as the salts. Water, for another example, is a voidance of oxygen and hydrogen, for there is no oxygen or hydrogen in water, nor do oxygen and hydrogen become water. Water is the result of the voidance of two unbalanced and opposed conditions caused by equalizing opposed pressures at static equators. Consider the static condition of a calm ocean. A storm transforms that surface into a dynamic condition. Waves which spring from the static ocean surface toward crests and troughs do not unite to reproduce another wave. They withdraw into the ocean surface. They disappear entirely and then reappear from it in reverse to repeat the next wave. Absolute voidance of one condition must take place before repetition can follow. Voided motion is recorded in the stillness from which it was unfolded in order that it can be repeated from that record. Records of motion are seeds for repetition of motion. In the seed is desire for manifesting imaged forms of idea. All forms are waveforms. All waveforms unfold from seed records of those waveforms. I am dual thinking mind, thinking two in action and reaction. I am dynamic thinking mind, pulsing with my dynamic thinking. With one pulse beat of my dual thinking, I build my multiple one image and bind them all as one in me. I then cancel them with the other voiding pulse. Each then is naught, but both are seed for another two. Thus I produce, void and reproduce, generate, radiate, and regenerate in cycles without end. For behold, my imaged universe is mirrored to infinity. It is repeated to the endless end, yet there are but multiples of three in all my universe. And again I say to thee, two of those very three are not, but my imaginings, for my Trinity is but one. The two are in me, and they are of me, but they are not me, nor am I them. From the Divine Iliad. Chapter 8. Electricity defined. Electricity is the strain or tension set up by the two opposing desires of universal mind thinking, the desire for balanced action and the desire for rest. This electric universe is a complexity of strains caused by the interaction of these two opposing, interchanging electric desires. All matter is electric. All matter is conditioned into greater or lesser strains according to the intensity of desire, which is the cause of all electric strain to which it electric desires. All matter is electric. All matter is conditioned into greater or lesser strains according to the intensity of desire, which is the cause of all electric strain to which it is subjected. The farther removed from rest, the greater the strain or tension. That which we call high electric potential is merely great strain to maintain a condition which is far from the condition of rest. The familiar return ball with which a child plays is a good example of electric strain. When the ball is thrown from the hand, the elastic gradually tightens to increase the tension of resistance to strain generated in the elastic. The strain continues to intensify until the ball comes to rest. When the ball returns, the strain gradually lessens until the ball again comes to rest in the child's hand. When that happens, the strain and tension have been voided. Tension has not become rest. It has ceased to be. This whole electric universe is a complete maze of similar tensions. Every particle of matter in the universe is separated from its condition of oneness, just as the return ball is separated from the hand and each is connected with the other, one by an electric thread of light which measures the tension of that separateness. It is as though all of the universe of separated particles were playing return ball with each other. When a condition of oneness has been attained in matter, the electric tension ceases to be. Sodium chloride will illustrate this meaning. When sodium and chlorine desire separateness from their oneness off condition in sodium chloride, an electric strain is set up between that separated trinity. When the desire for separateness has gone out of sodium and chlorine, the electric tensions which bound them to the rest condition from which they sprang are voided. Likewise, sodium and chlorine are utterly voided. The reason for this is because all matter is a series of electric tensions. When the tensions cease, The conditions set up by them cease. It is as though two children on a seesaw withdrew into their fulcrum. Sex tensions and strains intensify the farther they are removed from rest. When unbalanced, sex tensions void their unbalance through interchange between the opposite electric desires, which cause those tensions. Electrical force ceases to be. Likewise, sex desire ceases to be. Electrical tensions exist only between unbalanced electrical matter in motion, which is separated from other electrical matter in motion. Wherever there is a condition of rest, electricity ceases to be. Electricity is, therefore, a dual force which seemingly unbalances a condition of rest by dividing it into two opposite conditions and sets them in seeming motion. Interchange between the two opposites of motion voids the unbalanced condition at the end of each cycle of electrical expression. As rest cannot be unbalanced, save by illusion, electricity which causes that illusion has no existence. Behold in me the one, inseparable. Two things there are not in my universe. There is but me. Everything that is of every other thing that is. Nothing is of itself alone. All things are indissolubly united. This is a universe of seeming, an imagined universe of thinking, an action universe of desiring. That which mind desireth will appear in the image of that desire. Seek ye therefore what ye will in me, and ye shall find it. Desire what ye will, and behold it standeth before thee. Throughout the eons it hath been thine without thy knowing, e'en though thou hast but just asked for it. Sit ye not and ask, acting not, for thy desire will not come thy way to thee, unaided by thy strong arms. Behold, I am within, all things centering them, and I am without, all things controlling them. But I am not those things which I center in them and control in space surrounding them. I am the center of my universe of me. Everywhere I am is the center of all things, and I am everywhere. From the Divine Iliad.